The Fate series is one of the largest and most expansive franchises in the Japanese entertainment industry, spanning pretty much every single medium you can think of today, from visual novels, light novels, web novels, manga issues, video games, movies, and seasonal anime shows, each with their own spin-offs and unique adaptations. Needless to say, the Fate series of today has long since transcended its humble origins as a, well, don't worry about that part. If you know, you know. The point is, when such a massive and beloved series releases an official collaboration with Honkai Star Rail, a video game that I frequently talk about and cover, how could I not take this rare golden opportunity to preach some Fate gospel to the populace? I mean, Fate sits at a solid position as one of my top 10 favorite anime of all time, so it's practically a moral obligation for me to talk about it when given the chance, especially when the two playable characters in the Star Rail collab happen to also be two of the most iconic ones in the story. Stay Knight's Archer and Saber, the latter of which is Artoria and Archer, the king of legendary Britannia. But before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to share with you my favorite things about medieval Britain, such as the Pythagorean theorem, ancient philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, or British cultural aspects like Mount Olympus, Eastern Orthodoxy, and Byzantine history. Or how about some famous dishes from English cuisine like beef gyros, moussakas, and spanakoptika.
Oh my god!
Ah, yes, indeed. I am truly feeling very British right now. I might even pay a visit to the Parthenon of Athena down in Manchester later today. I think it's wise to start off by answering one of the most commonly asked questions from anyone new to the Fate series. Where the hell do you even start watching the Fate series and by extension the greater Nasuverse at large? That is, the universe written by Kinoko Nasu and Type Moon, encompassing Fate's story along with other IPs such as Tsukihime, Witch on the Holy Night, and a bunch more, all of which are interconnected with one another to varying degrees. Now, there are two ways I can respond to this question. The first is to start with literally whatever you want. There is no true starting point or strict watch order to the Fate series, so you can pick whichever storyline catches your fancy, and as long as it's not a direct sequel to a previous movie or season, you will be able to follow along from there. However, the lack of a concrete chronological watch order doesn't mean there isn't an optimal starting point for newcomers, and that would simply be the Stay Night storyline, which is perfect since that's the version Star Rail is collabing with. First, start by watching Fate Zero Season 1 directly into Fate Zero Season 2. From there, you will choose between two branching adaptations of Fate Stay Night, either the Stay Night Unlimited Bladeworks anime Season 1 and 2, or the Stay Night Heaven's Feel movie trilogy, Presage Flower, Lost Butterfly, and Spring Song. Both Unlimited Bladeworks and Heaven's Feel tell different versions of the Stay Night story using the same core cast, but each version explores different outcomes based on the choices those characters make. I personally recommend you start with Unlimited Bladeworks before Heaven's Feel, but regardless of which route you choose, you're in for an absolutely captivating story that takes itself extremely seriously, for the most part, with a full-blown bloodbath of strategic assassinations, assaults, violations, and most importantly, brutal deaths left and right, delivered through some of the most well-animated fights and action scenes in the entire industry. Before they took on Demon Slayer, Fate Zero and Fate Stay Night were the shows that put Studio Ufotable on the global map. I cannot overstate how good the animation of Ufotable's Fate is. Even today, in 2025, they are still way better than the overwhelming vast majority of animated shows released worldwide. But there is one more adaptation I like to include in the watch order between Fate Zero and Stay Night. This is my personal modification, and it is Lord Elmiloy II's case files, which so far include Rail Zeppelin Grace Note, the Gravekeeper Cat and Magician OVA, followed by Rail Zeppelin Grace Note and Rail Zeppelin Grace Note Tokobetsu Hen. Lord Elmiloy's storyline is definitely on the more optional side of things, but I personally strongly recommend it if you want to learn more about the world of Fate and what happens to certain characters after the events of Fate Zero. So here's the full starter pack watch list in a linear fashion. Lord Elmiloy II's case files are a bit weird because they start before Stay Night, but then continue well after Stay Night, so you can either watch it before Stay Night or between Unlimited Bladeworks and Heaven's Feel. Alright, this was certainly one of the most complicated simple explanations I ever had to put together, so now that we are almost halfway through this video, how about I finally get into what Fate Stay Night's main plot is. At its heart, Fate revolves around a reoccurring battle royale known as the Holy Grail War, a secret magical conflict fought in the shadows of modern society, where 7 mages, known as Mustas, summon legendary figures from history, myth, and literature as heroic spirit savants. These savants are divided into 7 traditional classes: Saber, Archer, Lanza, Laida, Kasta, Hashashin, and Bazaka. Each one is a reincarnated heroic spirit given physical form to fight for the chance to win the Holy Grail, a wish-granting relic said to be capable of fulfilling any desire, no matter how impossible. This Holy Grail is understood within the world of Fate to be the same as the one from our real world, as the sacred cup used by Jesus Christ during the Last Supper, later believed to have caught his blood during the crucifixion. However, that latter part is completely mythological and is largely a byproduct of Arthurian legends, where the Holy Grail is sought after by the King of Camelot, Arthur Pendragon, and his Knights of the Round Table. By the way, I am not trying to throw shade at Arthurian legends, I actually really like them, but when it comes to the Grail, aside from it being used briefly by Jesus, there is zero historical evidence or any account of reliable worth for it being used to capture his blood or any of the other bullshit magical properties attributed to it in myths for that matter. Ironically, the same is true in Fate, because this quote-unquote Holy Grail has nothing to do with Jesus, even though most Holy Grail War participants believe they are fighting for Christ's divine relic, which is why you almost always have a bunch of Christians involved in those wars, including the family of Rin Tosaka. Instead, the so-called Holy Grail is more along the lines of this cup may or may not be a quantum anomaly created by ancient mages who got bored and ruined humanity. Now, while each Fate story plays around with the details, this core structure remains the same. Mustas plus savants equals strategic deadly warfare with personal ideals, trauma, and philosophy thrown into the blender. And speaking of savants, let's talk about Saber and Archer. These two are easily amongst the most iconic and beloved characters in the entire Fate franchise. Saber, whose true identity is Artoria Pendragon, aka the legendary King Arthur, was the face of the franchise for nearly a decade. She is the stoic, noble, and impossibly tragic king who carries the burden of leadership and an unwavering sense of justice, all while wielding Excalibur, the ultimate holy sword. And Archer, well, his mere existence is a spoiler, literally. So all I'm gonna say is that he is the single most important character in the Stay Night series. But he's also the most sarcastic, cynical, and mentally broken servant in the entire lineup. And I say that in the most affectionate way possible. Stay Night's Archer is an interesting example of what happens when idealism gets dragged through the mud, yet somehow refuses to fully die, but is also no longer fully there either. This gives Archer a unique foil dynamic with Artoria, a woman who took upon herself the identity of the legendary King Arthur and founded the Kingdom of Camelot, while holding herself to a strict moral standard and adhering to her idealized belief in virtues such as righteousness, honor, and sacrifice. All of which are virtues which Archer used to live by, but over time, they both confront the hard harsh truth of their fantasies and become broken in their own ways, but also deal with their own dejections and move forward in their own ways as well. I won't get into specifics from the anime because I think you guys should experience it for yourselves, but despite looking at and approaching situations through wildly different perspectives, Archer and Artoria ultimately desire and seek almost identical outcomes. So together, these two represent Fate's core themes: the cost of ideals, the burden of heroism, and the pain of walking your own path. Also, their fight scenes go stupidly hard, and yes, they are both walking memes online. Artoria eats mountains of food with a deadpan elegance, and Archer can grill meat while monologuing about nihilism. Finally, this brings us to the Star Rail collab with the Holy Grail War, hosted by OT Alfalfa in the dreamscape of Penacony, which is not really a conventional Holy Grail War, rather it's more of an extravaganza show set up by OT as part of his elaborate plan to supersede the Penaconian Charmony Festival with an even bigger tourism and business attraction through the idea of a divine wish-granting chalice. This allows for 3 servants to be summoned from fate. Don't actually ask me how, the technicalities of the explanation are put together with bubblegum, just suspend your disbelief. Those being Acha, Seba, and the legendary Celtic hero Cuchulainn as the Lanza, who also got a new fit in Star Rail. Fun fact, the 11th Fatui Harbinger over in Genshin, Tartaglia, is inspired by the same Cuchulainn from Celtic mythology, with the Skirk being the equivalent of Scathach, his teacher. The other servants were based on spirits of historical figures from Penacony, such as the founder of the Iris family, Asna, initially called Miss Note by Robin, along with the failed director Grady, played by the memo keeper Mr. Rekka, who made a deal to reenact his character, then collect and preserve his memories as payment from Oti Alfalfa. Asna and Grady were caster and assassin respectively, while the final 2 classes, Berserker and Rider, were fulfilled by Oti himself, along with the watchmaker Mikhail Kar Legwork, who did absolutely nothing throughout the entire Holy Grail War. Thankfully though, all 3 of Fate's iconic servant characters, Archer, Artoria, and Cuchulainn, have equally iconic Japanese voice actors who play them, which is perfect as we are certainly going to have to rely on them because of, I see, a silent film arc. Truly what we all wanted. Yeah, I'm starting to see why Grady was considered to be a failure in the movie industry of Penacony. But hey, at least we still got Britain, the homeland of extremely famous English characters such as Phaenon and Cyrene. All in all, I strongly recommend that you guys check out the Fate series. I guarantee you that you'll be in for some of the best fight scenes in animation history. And to all of my homies at the back, here is the watch order for the Fate Stay Night storyline. Once again, Lord Elmiloy's case files are completely optional, and you can watch them before or after Unlimited Blade Works. At any rate, this is going to be it from me for now, so as always, huge thanks to everyone who supports this channel on Patreon, and thank you for watching till the end. For now, I've been My Name for Now, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.